Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to discuss with you guys a little bit about a topic that at one time I didn't agree with, but I have done plenty of research, observed many top level coaches, talked to many very successful world level lifters, done my own training, my own testing, observed my own clients, and found that stance to be so untrue that it's absolutely ridiculous. Okay, so I want to make that clear because people always bring up, but Jason, didn't you say this at one time? Yeah, and this is called admitting that I was flat wrong and that the evidence showing that I was wrong is overwhelming to the point where I have spent very large amounts of my own money in the other direction. Like I put my money where my mouth is in this case. I have bought tons of equipment to do the very thing that we're talking about. I put my money where my mouth is out of my own pocket. Okay? And that's this idea that using bands, chains, or partials for max effort lifts doesn't carry over to raw lifts. And that is oftentimes the excuse people who choose not to use these things always say, well, that is intended purely for the bench shirt and a squat suit, and it replicates those curves. And that sounds good. And look, there are plenty of successful lifters, even at the world level, and very strong people who don't use any of these tools. Okay? Who don't use these tools. But because there are examples of people who don't, doesn't mean that their point is correct, who say that a tool doesn't work. It's like creating an argument of why writing on a piece of paper with blue ink won't be able to write words, and creating a logical argument because you choose to use black ink, but you never use the blue ink to actually find out yourself. And then making the argument that the blue ink won't work. It can't work. But then you see 500 other people writing legible words that you can read just fine with blue ink. Okay, at that moment, the people on the other side lose credibility, and it doesn't matter that they've been successful using the other method. It doesn't matter that they've been successful. It's they're claiming that a method doesn't work and can't work when it obviously, clearly, and provably does. Guess what? Both methods work. My God. More than one thing can actually achieve results. What an unbelievable statement. You know, that's actually possible for more than one thing to actually work sometimes. Yeah, it happens in all sorts of things. In weightlifting, in training, in strength training is one of those areas where that happens. More than one thing can actually make you not only successful, but be the very best in the world. It's more than one route to success. So let's come over and talk about this. People will say, well, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It doesn't work. People don't seem to understand the basic lifts are very low specificity. Okay, and that is a point that gets lost on people. I'm sorry, but technique is not as big of a deal as it's been made out to be in the squat, bench, or deadlift. You can actually just overdevelop muscles and get stronger and push your way right through bad technique all the way to damn near world record levels. All right? And that's the truth. There are world record holders in powerlifting who actually do the lifts incorrectly, who don't use good technique because they're low skill lifts. I'm not saying it doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter as much as you think it does. Specificity doesn't matter that much. Strength is strength. Muscle is muscle. You maximize the size of every muscle involved in a lift, and you practice pushing really heavy weights through anything remotely resembling the movement pattern, you're going to be damn strong at that lift. And you might even be world record strong at that lift. All right? That's the reality. Bands, chains, partials are max effort movements. If done as a max effort movement, it carries over. People can say, well, it can't carry over. It doesn't train all the muscles involved. It might not get all the joint angles or the exact strength curve. Well, who gives a shit? Like, why does that actually matter? The purpose of doing maxes is not to hypertrophy the muscles. Okay? I want to make that point very, very clear. Does anyone out there think that we do 1 rep maxes for the purpose of getting big? Like, do you think that that's the fastest way to hypertrophy a muscle? Because if you do, that's pretty delusional and ignorant. That is not the best way to get big, is to just do 1 rep maxes and go home. Okay, we build our size off of supplemental work. Even people who use this system, we build our muscles with other stuff. We don't build our bench muscles by doing the board press for a single or by doing a 1 rep max against bands with a football bar. We build them doing closed grip benches, dumbbell presses, tricep work, delt work, right? Usually for high reps. Even our speed work contributes quite a bit to hypertrophy. That's how we build them. We do 1 rep maxes to learn to strain, to push. And if you get good at hitting 1 rep maxes, it carries over to similar lifts. Okay? In fact, it could be argued that if you do 6 or 12 different sorts of chest presses to a 1 rep max, you're better at staying in your groove or refining the groove you get out of your groove because you're strong and used to pushing through a few different angles and strength curves, that if something doesn't go perfect on the lift or you get out of your groove by a ½ inch, your perfect groove, you're already used to the other strength curves. Or if the weight stalls and you have to push through and grind again because it gets hard in the middle or the top, but you're used to pushing against heavier weights through that point because of the bands or the chains, arguably you're going to be better at it. And better at it due to the specificity of training, right? Because you're used to pushing a heavy weight through that sticking point. It's heavier than what you have on the bar sometimes. Well, at least relative to your max with the raw weight, right? You're used to getting a ½ inch out of your groove because every time you throw the bands on, it jerks you out of your groove. And you learn how to explode through when you miss groove because you've practiced it. So when you do have something go wrong, you have actually practiced for that eventuality. Guess what? People who train that way also get hurt at a lower rate. They get less overuse injuries, and they are used to awkward angles and learning to push through and find their groove and refine the movement pattern, the safe movement pattern when something is a little bit off. Because they're used to getting jerked out of position by bands or chains or whatever, right? You get used to it. Your strength potential is built from your hypertrophy work, right? All your tricep work and your hamstring work, all that work we do to get bigger, that's what builds our strength potential. And I don't care who you are, a raw lifter, an equipped lifter, whatever. We build our strength potential that way. You guys think even an Olympic lifter builds their strength potential by doing the snatch, clean, and jerk? Because let me tell you, the majority of the guys at the Olympics do more than those 2 exercises, right? You do know that, right? They build their work capacity and strength and hypertrophy using more than 2 exercises. There are guys who win gold medals who do more than two lifts. Some of them even squat. Back squat's not involved in those lifts. What? Some of them back squat. Some of them even deadlift. Some of them do overhead presses. All sorts of stuff. They don't build their size and strength potential by doing the snatch, the clean, and the jerk. That's not where they get big and strong. They do those for technique because that's what they compete at. But those are very technical movements. These basic lifts are not as technical. Okay, a proper snatch is way more difficult to perform than a squat, a bench press, or a deadlift. Okay, it is way more difficult. Highly technical movement to do correctly. Requires a lot of practice. Usually some pretty damn good instruction too. These movements don't require that. We max to learn how to strain and to push against a heavy ass awkward weight. And so yes, if you do variations and never even touch the classical lift for a year and you get bigger and stronger, you will PR on it. You'll PR on that variation without even having done it. You guys have watched me do it. You watched me do it. Do you guys think that when I put 70 pounds on my squat that I was secretly doing a bunch of back squats on camera, even though I was doing a ton of high volume training on camera and wouldn't have had the recovery to do a bunch of back squatting, right? Do you guys think that that's what I really did? I was secretly doing a bunch of 500-pound squats off camera? Or do you think that I actually did all the workouts that I filmed, which was every single workout for a year, all of them, bar none? None performed a back squat. I built almost all of that with box squats against bands and chains. Sometimes even different barbells. Built up to a 550 raw squat without having practiced it. It's not that technical of a movement. You just have to be strong and well developed. You just have to build all your weak links, and you have to learn how to push really heavy weight. That's it. Specificity and technique of the classic lifts has been overhyped and overrated. I'm not saying you can't do maxes with the classic lifts and still get strong. Sure you can. Of course you can. Because you're still doing the exact same thing I just described. You are pushing against a heavy ass, awkward ass weight, right? But what I'm suggesting is it's not going to make you any stronger than doing a one board against chains, right? 60 pounds of chains hung on the bar in a one board will make you just as strong practicing that on a max as doing the bench well. And so on and so forth. That's what I'm suggesting. Because that's just learning to execute strength. We build our strength potential off all the supplemental work. Okay, all your training volume. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.